Glad that you're here. This is going to be a great opportunity for us to get to know each other even better. I always love when you come to the chat with Priscilla. We're going to sit down in our virtual living room and have a great conversation with a wonderful guest. You're going to want to stay tuned, okay? So grab your favorite drink, cappuccino, hot tea, coffee, you know, whatever it is you've got, and get comfortable. We're going to have a great time together. We're going to have a great time together today because we are going to be talking to one of my favorite people on the planet. She is funny, she's warm, she's had influence on lots of people for lots of years. You're going to recognize her as soon as you see her. Please welcome Lisa Whelchel. Hello, my friend. Hello. Okay, I got to tell you right off the bat that this woman is my friend. She is my friend. She is just a delightful person. We have known each other for about 10 years now. And throughout that time, I have watched you transition from many phases of life. And the reality is, though, people who have only seen you from afar have watched you transition through large portions of your life.
Yes, those who have known me longer than you.
That's exactly right. Because, you know, I wasn't even born yet when you were doing your time. That's not true. Everybody remembers The Facts of Life. Didn't you grow up watching The Facts of Life? Okay. Wonderful program. And you played Blair. And you know, we might as well just start there, okay? I know most of your interviews probably start there. And I got to ask you, because Blair was this icon of demure, sophisticated, you know, she just kind of had it all together. And you played her so well. How is she different than Lisa Whelchel?
Are you, because I think you're inferring that there is something different. Because you don't think I'm demure and soft? And,
well, can we just say that you look amazing? Do you all agree with me? She looks.
We can totally say that. Thank
amazing.
You. Okay, good.
I actually think you don't look that much different than you did in the 80s.
Sweet.
It's true. You look wonderful. I want to talk about that a little bit later on, how you have, you know, as women, our bodies change so much. Hormones and all of that stuff just kind of changes throughout life. And yet, you've done a great job of just taking care of yourself. So I do want to talk about that.
Okay.
But I want to know.
But yeah, no, I'm totally different from Blair.
You are?
Oh, yes. This is Blair's dress. I had to borrow this from Blair. Otherwise, I would be in my pajama pants and my Crocs and my T-shirt, which is kind of my go-to outfit.
Why didn't we do the show why didn't we do that? We should have worn T-shirts and...
We totally should have. I don't know. I mean, I've got it in the dressing room, which we will go change.
So you're much more comfortable just...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like these shoes, they will be off in 5 seconds.
Yes.
As soon as I walk off here, halfway through, they're off. Yeah.
And tell us about that time frame in your life when you were on the set of Facts of Life. You were a Christian even then.
Yes.
What did that look like in Hollywood for you? How did you have to navigate loving the Lord and living for Him, and yet being in this setting where I'm assuming that the majority of people that you were around, especially at the height of your fame, when you couldn't even go to the grocery store without, you know, everybody being around you, and how were you able to balance both of those things, or were you able to do it well?
You know what? It wasn't an issue. I think because I became a Christian before I went to California, and so it really wasn't like I went to Hollywood to kind of become famous. I really did know I was a child of God. Don't get much more famous than that. I didn't go looking for who I am. I knew who I was. I didn't go looking for something to fulfill me. I had, you know, something that filled me up. So there was not a lot of, there wasn't a lot of emptiness for me to go try to fill up. And so I didn't, you know, go down the paths looking for something. And I wasn't even that interested in it. And so it wasn't, I mean, I had my issues, but I would have had those issues staying in Texas. It really had nothing to do with Hollywood.
So you were born in Texas?
Yes.
Grew up most of your life in Texas?
Yes.
In your young years until you jetted off to
when
California?
When I was 12, moved to California to be on the new Mickey Mouse Club, and then stayed out there until I had kids in junior high, moved back to Texas to raise them, and then just now moved back to California.
She didn't have her children when she was in junior high. She means when her kids were in junior high.
Yes, because otherwise I would have had something to talk about. How was I able to balance?
That's right.
Apparently not.
So you had your children. You got married right after the series ended. I mean, it was like that same year.
Yeah, we filmed the last episode of The Facts of Life in March of '88. I got married in July of '88. Got pregnant in '89, then had a child in '90, '91, and '92. Yeah, so obviously Mrs. Garrett taught me the facts of life.
Okay, this is a huge life transition because you're going from this Hollywood, lots of attention your way, being on the set. You have spent 9 years. Was it 9 years
Yes.
y'all filmed that series? So you've got a whole life change very quickly because now you're a wife and you're a mom, and you're gonna later on in your children's life you move to Texas, so you're out of the limelight completely. But when your children were young, that first decade, you made huge life change from Facts of Life to wife and mom. What did that look like for you?
Nothing was the same because I went from, having somebody do my hair, my makeup, and my clothes, and the whole world, kind of my little world revolved around me, to almost immediately getting married and then having these 3 kids in diapers at one time. And I lost all the money that I made on the Facts of Life. I wasn't working. We were living on a pastor's salary in a rented house because we couldn't afford the down payment for to buy a house.
Okay, wait, stop right there.
Okay.
We want to know how in the world all the money that you made from the Facts of Life got lost somewhere. We just need clarification on
I
that.
could make up something really glamorous and dramatic, but it really was just bad investments and, people that kind of took advantage. And then, I'm not a big spender, but I'm not good with money either. So all of it just,
It just kind of flittered away.
A lot of it had to do with, real estate went bad, the banking crisis, the oil crisis, all that, just all at one time. It was one of those perfect storms kind of thing.
And was it devastating to you, or were you kind of at the place in your life where it was okay because you were moving on to something different and you knew that you could regroup and rebuild?
Yeah, I think I've just wired that way. I'm wired to, for one thing, I think it's one of the reasons why God tells us to remember the things He's done for us in the past. So when we're in the middle of it, we're not going to go, oh no, is God going to show up? I mean, I have just so many stories from the time I was little of God coming through that no matter what happens, it's like, okay, you know what, He's going to come through. I don't know how, but He's going to. And the lesson, the desert time, the wilderness time, there are going to be treasures there in the darkness that I wouldn't be able to get if things were all going well. So, I mean, it just has been naturally easy for me because I do have such a real vital understanding of God's love for me and who He is, that I just say, okay, what is here to learn here, and I'll learn what needs to be learned here, and everything will turn out okay, and it always does.
Okay, I want to get back to your children and where you were in your life as a new mom in just a second, but I've got to ask you this question. We see so many young people in Hollywood that their life just turns out to be a disaster. There are several I can name right now that you're starting to see them kind of go off the deep end, and you're going, oh man, I wish they had some people around them that would kind of harness them during this tender phase in their life. How did you escape the loopholes that a lot of the child stars that we know from the 80s didn't have the opportunity to escape? And so how did it happen? What do you account that to?
I think 2 things. I think commenting on some of the kids that you see them kind of going off the path right now, that is not abnormal for kids at that age. It's just that they are covered by the media.
Right.
And so then it's kind of amplified. But, you look at any Christian household, half of the kids are going to go that way, half of the kids are going to go this way, and they're raised the same way by the same parents. And so if you're filming it, then this is going to get dramatized, and so it's going to look like, oh, they're going haywire. Well, follow them long enough, maybe into their 40s, and at 40 they're going to probably go through it and maybe not be in the limelight. So I want to be careful of just saying, oh, they're going off the deep end, because having raised 3 kids, I've got some kids that are trying to find their way on their own, and I have some kids that are doing the straight and narrow. And I just think there's room for all of that because God works in all of that. Now, for me, I think I was too scared to do that. I think and also because I was on my own, I was clinging to God. And I think that's another thing. Sometimes, parents get judged because their kids are experimenting, and that may be because they feel safe enough to. It may be because they feel they are loved and they are accepted, and it's not based on their performance or whether they're good or they're bad.
And did you think it was based on your performance,
I
your
was
acceptance
very much
by God too?
I was very much the kind of, I understood with my head grace, but I didn't really trust it. And so yes, it kept me out of trouble, but it also, in a lot of ways, kept me from just resting in the gift of grace. And, you know, so it's just have to be careful with, you know, what you, again, I think we were talking about this backstage, what you call good and what you call bad. That's up to God to judge.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you got through that phase in your life.
I got through that phase also because I really was, I learned at an early age just to have the time in the morning, just in the Word and in prayer and filling
And you would
up
do
with
that
the Spirit.
on set?
I would do it before I got to the set.
You would?
Yeah, and so that was, so again, that also, there wasn't this emptiness. I didn't go looking to fill that out with drugs or with alcohol or with boys. I filled up with the Lord, and so I wasn't empty and searching, and so that did keep me from going down paths that could have been destructive.
And you know, one thing that you told me a long time ago that I thought was very interesting was that, you know, you were just in the past 10 years of your life or so encountering real, meaningful girlfriend, deep relationship. You did not have that for the majority of your life. And was that because of the position you were in, that you just didn't have connection and intimacy in female relationships?
That was a part of it, but I think also I was really shy, and that's why I started acting, because my mom put me in an acting class to see if it would help me just kind of come out of myself, because I was too afraid to talk to anybody. And so I think I built this shell of protection around me, which also kept people out. And it wasn't until the last 10 years, as I began to experience grace and not just know it in my head, but when you know you're accepted, kind of like what I said earlier about kids, if they know they're accepted, then they can maybe make some mistakes and it's not so detrimental. Well, I was so afraid of making a mistake in my life that I kept really small. And so I think that I just felt more accepted and more what grace was like, so I didn't have to be so afraid, and then let some of the barriers down and some of the self-protection down, and that's the only way that you can have real connection and intimacy anyway. And so it was all kind of, I was on television junior high and high school and didn't go to a normal school, so I didn't know how to have friendships anyway, and that played a big part of it as well. So it was all, you know, all working together.
Given everything you know now, looking back on it, if you could rewrite the story again, would you do it again? Have you ever felt overwhelmed? Or like your life was so stress-filled and stressful that you couldn't even enjoy your life anymore? What if I told you there was a little secret? There is something that the Jewish people have been doing for years and centuries. There's a discipline that is a regular part of their lives that has caused many of them to be able to steer clear of the stress-filled existence that many of us, you and me, often are accustomed to. I want to tell you about that secret.
We will always be drawn to overdo things, and God knows this. This is why He puts boundaries in place. They are a gift to us. We are now completely free, standing in the Shabbat space of God, the margin that God has given us so that we can experience the freedom that God has come to give all His children.
It's going to be a journey through the scriptures that is going to help us to enjoy life the way God always intended.
We're not just doing a Bible study together. We're on a missionary journey. We're on the road with Paul and Silas and Timothy. We're doing the gospel thing. That's what this is about. And we are entrusted to be the children of the day. Please, by all means, bypass me. Go for God. Ask Him. You pull these words off the page, Lord. You make it fire in my bones. You make me able to say when I get to the end of this journey, what if I had missed that? What if I had missed that? It is time to get back to the stuff of your calling. Today is the day.
Given everything you know now, looking back on it, if you could rewrite the story again, would you do it again?
Would I do what again?
Would you do your junior high and high school years the same? Would you exchange the normalcy, the friendships, the whatever you may have had in a regular life in Texas, junior high and high school, for the experience, the fame, the whatever good that came, even good that came from the life you had? Would you do it over again?
You know what? I can go one step further. There's nothing in my life that I would change, because
that's a big statement.
That's a big statement. There's every single thing that, even if I were to think, well, yeah, if I had done this, then this would have been easier, or would have turned out better, or would have been less painful. What I got in that situation that maybe is a little bit more intangible and all related to my walk with the Lord was far and above worth it. So there's nothing that I would change, because every single thing has been absolutely perfect for who God has called me to be.
What would be one of those gifts? What would be the number one or number two gift that you got from that season of life that you think the Lord gave you to prepare you for this next season?
Well, I would have to say one of the most public things on television, and one of the most painful things, was going through puberty on television, and there was so much focus on my weight. And I gained weight during puberty, and Blair was supposed to be svelte, and it was supposed to be all svelte and sexy and had great clothes, and I was outgrowing my Eastland Academy uniform, and they sent me to Fat Farms, and they put a scale in the middle of the rehearsal hall. I mean, it was really very, very difficult. And yet on the other side, so many things. One, I'm so glad that, I wouldn't have chosen this on my own, but I'm so glad that I was able to be a young teenage girl on television that looked normal, so that I wasn't more a part of the pollution of the mindset of young girls that's saying you need to be skinny to be beautiful. Blair, how perfect. She was kind of fluffy at times, and yet she carried herself like she was just gorgeous. And I would choose to give that message on my own, and that's the message I would want my daughters to have on television. But it's not something I would have chosen. I wasn't that altruistic at that point.
Right. But looking back, you see that it was actually a gift to the culture for them to see a beautiful, talented. Actually, you were the symbol of beauty, kind of amongst the group of girls on that show. But you could have a little flesh on your bones, and it'd be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I hope all those executives are looking at her now, because you look amazing.
Thank you.
And we want to know exactly why and how. But first, we got to get back to the kid part.
Okay.
So you just left Hollywood. You went home.
Yes.
Wife, mom, and you just kind of all of a sudden were out of the limelight.
Yeah.
We lost sight of you.
Completely, jumped into the deep end.
Did you enjoy that, or did you start to feel isolated and alone and kind of weird about it?
I loved it. I had a wonderful experience in show business, but nothing compared to just my joy of those years with those little kids at home. They were hard, and it was 3 kids in diapers and on very little money, and then eventually homeschooling the kids. So there were some rugged years, but I was doing what I just had always. I'd always wanted to be a mommy.
Sure. What would you say to a mom right now?
And probably the hardest emotional time of my life.
Why would you say that?
Just early marriage stuff, and exhausted, and really some identity transition. Anytime you go through such a huge shift of life and identity, any kind of change like that, that's painful. You got to break it up before you and it's got to be a lot of times destroyed before it can be rebuilt, for what God has you in that season. And then about the time you start feeling good, some other season comes along. But at least by that time you can go, okay, I kind of know what's up here. I'm going to ride this and trust it, and it'll be good on the other side.
What did you do right in those 10 years when you were at home, homeschooling, kind of mommy-ness was your world? What did you do right? And what would you do differently if you could go back and do those years again?
Okay. I will be careful about saying what I did right for me and for my family, because I do think that
everybody has what they need for their family.
Right. But my favorite thing that I did was every night from the time they were little, when they were little, 2 and 3, and I would put them to bed, we would just start with, what are your, we call it high-low. What was your high of the day? What was your low of the day? As they got a little older, I called it window time because it was the window to their soul. They were in bed, they wanted to stay up later, and so, even if it meant talking to mommy, they were staying up later. And I would just ask them questions, did anybody hurt your feelings today? Did you do anything you need to confess and bring out in the light? Is there anything that you don't understand? And I would have that time. And a lot of times they would save up something that would happen during the day because they knew at the end of the night they were going to have a chance to kind of get it off their chest. And I mean, it's like, the Catholic Church has something going on with the confession. There is something that feels good about that. And so,
not to mention the rapport and relationship that grows between you and your child. And then when they're a teenager, they're used to having an opportunity to tell their mom or their dad, whatever the case may be, what's going on in their life.
And that'll be different with girls and boys. Like with my daughters, they still wanted to talk. Although one of the cutest things is my daughter once was little and she had said something she needed to confess. Of course, she had put the blanket over her face because she was so embarrassed. And all it was that there was a boy in her 3rd grade class that she said, and I blew him a kiss. I went. But then my son, when he got into junior high and high school, boys, they don't do this well.
I need help. I've got 3 boys.
Yeah.
And Lisa told me this habit that she had of sitting on the edge of the bed and kind of talking to her kids. That's what I do. I kind of go into the room. I've done it for a long time now, remembering what you said, and in hopes of having teenagers later and young adults that that know the door is open. So I go in, and I'm waiting for this thing to happen you said is going to happen, where they open up their mouths and talk and bare their soul. But my boys just go,
Yeah.
Well,
it's different with boys. So like when Tucker hit that age, then it was about really into music at that time. So I would just say he knew that every night I wanted him to play a song that he liked and then tell me what he liked about it.
Okay, so find something they like and talk
and
about it or do that.
go into their world and to learn about them. And then he got a little older. We took golf lessons together. And so we're in the golf cart. We're not looking straight ahead, but I can be driving, and he doesn't have to look at me. But you're 9 holes or 18 holes. I never could do 18 holes. Then there's going to be some conversation that happens. So also find something to do with them that's active. That in the course of the activity, they're going to just start talking, and then you just capture that moment. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds so, it just sounds so perfect, Miss Lisa. It just seems like you just did it all so right. Please tell us a horror story from the raising of your children.
I will tell you. I have got the horror story.
We need one of those.
Okay. So I wrote a book called Creative Correction.
Yes, you did.
But
I know this story.
Okay.
This is great. Okay.
And it's because nothing was working, especially with Tucker, who has ADHD. None of the typical child-rearing methods were working, so I had to get creative and kind of find ways that beyond the top 3, timeouts, spanking, and yelling. Yelling, my favorite. But they weren't working, and so I got creative.
To be creative. Okay.
Yes, and that was great. And then until the hormones started showing up, and then that was not working so much anymore, but it was like, but wait a minute, this worked before. So rather than ditch it and realize this is no longer working, I reinforced it and did it even more. And so of course on your first boy or firstborn, you make all your mistakes. And I learned there's a totally different way of raising before hormones and after hormones. And things that worked here,
are you talking about their hormones or ours?
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Exactly. Yes, that too.
Yeah.
You have to just throw it out and do something different.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, so I kept really making the boundaries smaller and smaller until it's like,
Yeah.
But at one point, Tucker was much older. I mean, not much older, but the hormones had been around for a while, and we were yelling because I was reverting and regressing to yelling. And he was at one point, I realized we're not going to settle this by yelling. So I said, Tucker, just calm down, and when you calm down, we will have a conversation and work this out. And I, slammed the door and guarded the back, and he's trying to beat the door down and get in the bedroom. And, finally he goes away, and I'm thinking, okay, great, we'll just handle this later. About 5 minutes later, my bedroom door opens up, and come flying in through the bedroom door. He's gotten a paperback copy of my book, Creative Correction, off the shelf and lit it on fire. Throws it into the bedroom and says, "That's what I think about your parenting." And and you know what? That was a wake-up call for me.
Well, yeah.
But you know what? It was a wake-up call that...
Did he get a spanking after that? That's what I want to know.
No, he did not. I spanked myself after that because I was the one that was not treating him as a young man. I was still treating him
realized that you
as a
needed
little
to do it
boy.
differently.
And you know, young men, I mean, they need to be respected. And, you know, and I was not treating him with respect. I really wasn't. And I wasn't, and a lot of respect has to do with trusting them and trusting God that He is working in them. And I learned my most important lessons by doing it the wrong way. Why would I not grant that to my children as well? And to realize they're going to learn their lessons, the lessons that are going to go deep, by making some mistakes and then going, oh wow, that hurts. That's not going to work out.
Letting them make the mistakes
exactly.
sometimes.
And so I switched gears after that. And
after the book came flying into your room on fire.
First of all, I laughed. I did.
That is hysterical.
I did laugh. And I said, Ducker, you win. You so win on this one. Yeah. And then I really started just trying to ask him a little bit more questions, a few more questions to find out what he was really feeling, what he was going through, and that made quite a big difference.
Creative Correction. That is the name of one of Lisa's many titles, and you really need to get your hands on a copy of that book because it's
But not
great.
if your kids are over a certain age.
Because they will light it on fire and throw it into your room.
That's right. Then you need to get the hardback so you can just knock them over the head with it.
It really is a good book that really makes you think about creative ways to kind of align your children and to shape their hearts and all that great stuff. Okay, listen, this is just part one of our conversation with Lisa. We are going to have a part two because we still need to talk about your time on Survivor. See, a lot of folks from this kind of that are teenagers in their early 20s right now, they don't remember Blair.
Right.
They remember Lisa that they just saw on Survivor. We got to talk about that because Survivor's hard.
Yes.
It's hard work. You were hungry, weren't you?
I was hungry. I was itching. I was cold. I was stinky. All of it.
I still don't know why you did that. But anyway, we're going to talk about that and other life lessons she has learned. Would you please help me by thanking her for being with us today?